So today I will be making chicken biryani, which is a Indian dish that is chicken, of course, mixed with rice and a few other vegetables chopped up. So before we get to the fun part of cooking, of course, I'm gonna start off by showing you all the preparation of the vegetables and the meat, getting ready to actually do the cooking. And of course, before any of the preparation starts, I'm gonna be washing my hands for 20 seconds, singing the ABCs. So this first step in preparation here, we're gonna be chopping 1/4 cup of unsalted almonds to throw into the large mixture that we're gonna mix with the meat once we put it into the skillet. So the next addition to this mixture that we're making is 1 jalapeno seeded and finely chopped. So I cut the 2 ends off and in half so I can get the seeds out. And then once I have it chopped finely, I'll add it to the mixture. An interesting theory based around Indian food that especially pertains here is that there's 6 different types of flavors and sensations in Indian food, such as sour, spicy, salty, sweet, astringent, and bitter. So in this dish, we're definitely going to be seeing some different types of the flavors and sensations that are in a lot of the main Indian foods. Onions in India are actually considered the poor man's vegetable, and they import them from mainly Pakistan. We're going to chop up 1 medium onion and add it to the mixture. Definitely do not touch your eyes after cutting the onion, and do not forget to wash your hands. Pro tip, washing dishes while you go instead of leaving them all for the end will definitely lighten the load by the time you finish cooking. What we have next is going to be 1 teaspoon of turmeric, which we're going to measure out and then throw into the mixture with the onions and other things that we prepped so far. And then we also have 1 teaspoon of cumin, which goes in that mixture. And then we're getting to the salt, which we have 1.5 teaspoons of. And salt is kind of a staple in an Indian diet, and it shows up in a lot of food. And actually, India has been cooking with salt and even pepper since 5000 BC. Then we're also going to be adding 2 teaspoons of garam masala, which is a very popular Indian spice / seasoning that adds a lot of flavor and that Indian style to the dish. Then once you add that amazing smelling spice into the mixture, we're going to add 1/4 cup of golden raisins. They definitely added to the sweet sensation of this particular dish. So now we're going to measure out 1 cup of jasmine rice, and we're not going to add it to the mixture with the spices and onions, but we're going to put it in a separate bowl with 2.5 cups of bone broth. This is also another staple for Indian food, and I think it would be very different if rice wasn't in many of these dishes. The recipe then calls for 2 large tomatoes, and I only had 3 small ones, so I just made it work. And tomatoes are also a staple ingredient in Indian food, and they happen to not have an Indian origin, as a matter of fact. They were brought to India by the Portuguese and then made popular in their dishes after that. And the recipe did call for these tomatoes to be chopped, otherwise known as cutting into small pieces by rocking the knife back and forth on the cutting board. Then once we have all these tomatoes chopped, we aren't going to add them into the bowl with all the spices, but we're going to put them in a separate bowl with the garlic later. And then we're just going to be putting them in a bowl for later to be added to the mixture. And here we're going to be cutting up 1 tablespoon of garlic, and we're actually going to be mincing it. So when mincing, you really want to do this to get all the flavor out of the garlic and really make it pop. This is adding even more flavor and sensation to the disc, really making it savory. According to Wikipedia, India actually produced 1.7 million tons of garlic last year. Then you can just add it to the mix with the tomatoes and move on to the cilantro. This is used for topping the dish, so we don't actually add this in ourselves, but we do set it on the table for people to put in as they wish. So I'm just taking the leaves off and putting it into a separate serving bowl. Of course, this adds a lot of flavor. Another side is 1 sliced lime, and this definitely adds to the sweetness of the dish. If you squeeze a slice of lime into your chicken biryani, it will definitely make the flavor pop more. Now to the slimy chicken, we had to weigh out 1 pound, and then I use the kitchen shears method because I just find it easier to cut raw chicken with kitchen shears as opposed to fighting it with a knife. So the 1 pound of chicken I cut into slices, and then cut into 1-inch cubes using my knife. In India, they make biryani with many other meats than just chicken as well. This recipe just called for chicken, but they also have beef biryani, and in some cases they use shark meat in their biryani. It's also a necessity to wash your hands after cutting chicken, no matter what. So now that we're at the fun part, I'm gonna grab my huge skillet to cook this large amount of food, and then I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil in the bottom of the pan just to kind of lubricate it. So here I am measuring it out, and then we're gonna turn the burner on to high to get the pan nice and hot, ready to cook that chicken. So then we throw this chicken that we cubed up previously into the pan and let it cook for 3 to 5 minutes. Just listen to that. So now that these chicken pieces are all golden brown, they've been on for about 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to flip them and then add in this mix of onion, jalapeno, garlic, ginger, salt, garam masala, cumin, turmeric, and then saute it for about 3 minutes or until the onions have softened. By now, the smell was amazing and the color was about to get even cooler as we stirred it and let it cook. And if you're someone who doesn't like spicy foods, this Indian dish, and not all Indian dishes are spicy actually, I did see the jalapeno, so a lot of the spice wasn't in there and more of it was just for flavor. And India is known as the spice capital of the world, so this definitely had all 6 sensations that I was talking about earlier. Now we can see really well the color that I was talking about. Once the onions have softened, we're going to add the garlic and tomatoes into the pan and then stir them up and mix it into it. The tomatoes were a really good part of this dish and were a very juicy addition. And the last thing that we add to it is the chicken broth and the 1 cup of white jasmine rice. Then once we pour it in and mix it around a little bit, we are going to set a timer for 10 minutes once we see it boil. Once it comes to a boil, that's the point when we want to cover the pan and then turn the heat down to like medium-low. And I didn't have a lid for this pan, so I just had to use the stoneware. Now is also a perfect time to catch up on dishes while you're waiting the 15 minutes for the rice to cook. For this next step, you're going to want to grab a fork because now that this is done, we're going to take the lid off and begin to fluff the rice using the fork. We also want to make sure to turn the temperature off because after we let this sit for 10 minutes, we have our finished product, chicken biryani. Some weird dining etiquette that they have in India is that they put the food out buffet style all at once, where here in Western culture we usually do courses. Another weird thing that I didn't keep constant for this is that in India they don't use cutlery when they eat their food. They prefer eating with their fingers. So the reason behind that is because I think it tastes better. So as you can see here, we're definitely going to use silverware though. Now that the meal's cooked and the table's set, we can get the sides out and get ready to eat. And after that great meal, we of course have the final cleanup. I would definitely make chicken biryani again.